The Moon Watchtower closed its eye the moment Arlenna Pike crossed the border. No thunder answered it. No horn blew from the battlements. No wolf howled loud enough to warn the court that something ancient had just refused to see for them anymore. Only the silver eye set high in Red Fern border tower blinked once, slowly, and went black. A Moon Watchtower did not close for grief. It closed when the pack cut away, the only watcher who had still known how to see what the dark was hiding. Arlenna felt it happen, with her back turned. She stood beyond the thornline with her widow's cloak gathered in one fist and the cold mud of exile already soaking through the hem of her dress. Behind her, the border court remained crowded beneath the tower arch. Nobles in fur-lined mantles, warriors with moon-steel spears, young watchmen eager to look brave, and Alpha King Merek Saul seated beneath the Red Fern banners, with his face carved into the kind of calm that made cruel orders sound necessary. Watch priest Nivara Crow held Arlenna's watch-right cord in both hands. Her thumb rested over the silver strand, not the wool, the seeing strand, and where her skin touched it, the silver had begun to dull. The part of the cord no priestess touched, unless she knew exactly where a watcher's sight had been tied. The cord was old black wool, threaded with one silver strand, worn thin from years around Arlenna's wrist. It had been her authority to climb the tower stairs after dusk, to read the moon eye, to sound warning before night creatures reached the pack's outer farms. Nivara lifted it for all to see. "False alarms weaken borders," she said. "Fear is also an invasion." The nobles murmured approval. They had hated Arlenna's warnings for years. They hated being woken before midnight, hated sending sons to patrol empty ravines, hated candles snuffed at feasts because a widow on the tower had seen movement beyond the red ferns. They liked safety best when it did not disturb their sleep. Arlenna had learned that. Widows learned what people preferred not to owe. Merek looked at her from the king's chair. He was not old, but power had settled over him like a winter pelt. Broad shoulders, dark hair tied at the nape, eyes the deep gold of a wolf watching through smoke. His royal wolf shadow lay behind the chair, huge and black, its ears forward, its muzzle angled toward Arlenna as if it heard something the court did not. That almost broke her. Not the nobles. Not Nivara. Not even the cord in another woman's hands. The wolf, still listening. Merek's voice filled the archway. "Arlenna Pike, by border judgment, your watch-right is stripped." The words were clean. Too clean. Arlenna's fingers curled around the edge of her cloak. She had expected the sentence. Nivara had built it carefully. 3 missed feasts, 7 patrols called into empty woods, 1 merchant caravan delayed by Arlenna's warning of shadows that no warrior later found. The priestess had called the reports grief fever, widow sight, old mourning turning into fear. No one spoke of the farms that had survived because gates closed early. No one spoke of the children who never woke to claws at their shutters. Survival left fewer witnesses than death. Nivara held out the cord to Merek. "Majesty, the tower requires a calm watcher, not a grief-bound woman who sees her dead husband in every patch of night." A few nobles lowered their eyes in polite discomfort. That was how they enjoyed cruelty. Softened by manners, Arlenna looked at Merek. "I never claimed the dark was my husband." Nivara smiled faintly. "But you let his death teach you where to look." Arlenna went still. Her husband, Arlenna Pike, had died beneath the North Ridge 7 winters ago, torn open by things the patrol did not see until they were already inside the warning line. After that night, Arlenna began seeing movement before the tower showed it. Not clearly, not always. A pressure behind the eyes. A cold line across the throat, moonlight bending the wrong way. Grief had not made her weak. It had made her attentive. Merek's hand tightened on the arm of his chair. Enough. For one breath, hope betrayed her. Then he held out his hand for the cord. Nivara placed it in his palm. The royal wolf shadow behind him turned its head sharply toward the darkening woods. Arlenna saw the movement. So did Merek. No one else did. His gaze flickered toward the thornline, then back to the watching nobles. He had a border full of angry houses to calm, patrol captains demanding certainty, and a priestess offering him one simple solution: silence the widow, silence the warnings, let the court believe the night had been exaggerated. Merek stood. When he came down the steps, no one breathed too loudly. He was Alpha King. His authority did not need shouting. It moved before him through the bodies of others. He stopped in front of Arlenna, close enough that she could see the faint scar cutting through his left eyebrow. Close enough that his wolf shadow reached hers on the stone, but not close enough to protect her. "I do not name you liar," he said. That should have been mercy. It was not. Arlenna looked at the cord in his hand. "You only punish me as one. Before you cut it," she said, "ask why the tower still opened for me after every warning you called false." Something crossed his face. Too late to be useful. "The border cannot answer every shadow," he said. "No," she replied. "Only the ones that are moving." Merek heard the difference. That was why cutting the cord should have cost him more than it did. Kings did not always choose the danger they believed. Sometimes they chose the lie their court could survive hearing. Nivara's smile vanished for half a breath. Merek heard the warning under Arlenna's words. His wolf heard it too. The shadow rose behind him, hackles lifting, but the nobles were watching, and Merek understood the shape of the danger too late. If Arlenna was right, then the border had not been haunted by a widow's grief. It had been left half-blind under his reign. So he chose the smaller shame, and cut the cord. He broke the silver strand from the black wool cord. The sound was small. Arlenna felt it in her chest. "Your watch ends," he said. The tower eye above them dimmed. Not fully. Not yet. As if even the tower hesitated to believe the pack had truly cut away the only watcher it still trusted. Arlenna bowed once. Not to Nivara, not to the nobles, not even to the king. She bowed toward the tower that had kept her company through years of cold stares and lonelier moons. Then she turned and walked beyond the thornline. The exile mark did not burn her skin. Widows were rarely granted such dramatic punishments. They were simply moved out of the way and expected to be grateful no one called it death. She took 5 steps. 6. 7. The Moon Watchtower blinked. Merek looked up. At the top of Red Fern Border Tower, the great silver eye closed like a living thing in pain. Darkness flooded the glass. Every torch along the wall guttered blue. Then, from the blind woods beyond the border, something laughed in a voice no wolf owned. And for the first time in 7 years, Arlenna heard the night answer her by name. Not in her husband's voice, in the voice of something that had been waiting for the tower to go blind. Then the black eye of the Moon Watchtower opened again. Not toward the wall, not toward the court, toward Arlenna, alone, as if the tower had taken its sight away from the pack and placed it in exile. The court did not understand blindness until the first watchman climbed the tower. He was young, broad-shouldered, eager to prove that a widow's absence could not cripple stone, moonglass, and royal law. He took the steps 2 at a time while the nobles below pretended not to be afraid. The great eye above Red Fern Border Tower remained open and black, fixed beyond the thornline where Arlenna stood alone in the mud. Not toward the wall, not toward the pack, toward exile. The watchman reached the moon chamber and placed both hands on the seeing rail. Nothing happened. No silver spread through the glass. No map of the border bloomed across the inner wall. No pale shapes moved among the red ferns where every wolf patrol should have appeared as living heat beneath moonlight. The young watchman's voice came down hollow through the stairwell. "Majesty, the tower shows no border." It had not gone dark. That would have been easier. It had chosen not to show the pack what it still showed her. A sound passed through the court. Not panic yet. The breath before it. Alpha King Merek Saul kept his gaze on the black eye. His face did not change. but his wolf shadow behind him lowered its head as if scenting a wound inside the stone. Watch-priest Nivara Crow stepped forward quickly, still holding the severed watch-right cord. The broken silver strand dangled between her fingers, dull where her thumb had pressed it. "The tower grieves disorder," she said. "It will settle once the widow's disturbance leaves the border." Arlenna heard her from beyond the thornline. That was the first strange thing. She should not have. The border court stood too far behind the wall, and the night wind blew against her. But the black eye of the tower looked at her, and every word spoken beneath it reached her like a whisper against bone. Merek turned toward Nivara. "You said the tower required a calmer watcher. It does. Then give it one." Nivara's mouth tightened. "The replacement must be blessed before moonrise. The border is blind now." "The border was confused before," she said. "By grief, sight, by false alarms, by a widow who taught the tower to mistake mourning for teeth." Arlenna's fingers closed around her cloak. The night beyond her answered with a soft scrape. She turned. Nothing stood in the red ferns. Not openly, but the moonlight bent wrong between two trees. The darkness there was not absence. It had edges, a narrow moving slit, like a path cut through the world where no path had been yesterday. Arlenna's throat went cold. Blind hour. She had seen the beginning of one only once before, 7 winters ago, moments before Oren died. A place where night creatures could cross warning lines without stirring scent, sound, or pawprint. A place the tower should have caught before it widened. The black eye above her pulsed once. Inside its darkness, a silver image formed not for the court, but for Arlenna alone. 3 outer farms, east slope, sleeping roofs. Something crawling low beneath the fern beds. Arlenna moved before pride could stop her. She turned back to the wall. East slope farms. Wake them. Every head below the tower snapped toward her. For one breath, hope moved through the guards. Then Nivara cut it down. "Do not answer her," the priestess said. "Exile speech carries no watch authority." Arlenna laughed once. Not with humor, with disbelief sharpened by exhaustion. "You stripped my authority, not my eyes." Merek's gaze found her across the thornline. The distance between them felt colder than the mud. "What do you see?" he asked. Nivara turned on him. "Majesty." Merek did not look away from Arlenna. "What do you see?" The question should have satisfied her. It did not. It arrived after the cord, after the sentence, after years of warnings made useful only when disaster became visible to men who preferred proof with teeth. Arlenna lifted her chin. "Now you ask." His jaw tightened. "Good. Let it cost him something." The black tower eye brightened behind her. Not silver, not fully, but enough to cast a dark halo over her widow's cloak. "I see a blind hour opening near the east farms," she said. "Not beasts yet, the road they use. If the families are not woken before the next bell, the first roofs will be silent by dawn." Several nobles recoiled. A border captain turned to Merek. "Majesty, permission to ride east." Nivara stepped between them. "No, that is exactly how false sight weakens us. She draws patrols away from the wall, while the true danger comes elsewhere." Arlenna looked at the priestess then, not at her face, at her hands. The severed cord lay across Nivara's palms, and the silver strand had dulled further. It was not merely broken, it was being drained. "Nivara," Arlenna called. The priestess went still. "You should not still be holding the seeing strand." Merek's head turned sharply. Nivara smiled, but the shape came too late. "I preserve it for the altar." "No," Arlenna said. "You are keeping the tower from finding where it was tied." The tower groaned. Deep stone, Olenga. The black eyes shifted slightly, and for one heartbeat its gaze passed over Nivara. The priestess flinched. Small, visible. The royal wolf shadow behind Merek rose to its full height. Merek saw the flinch. His hand closed around the broken half of the cord he still held. Give me the strand. Nivara bowed her head. Majesty, unblessed hands may damage. Give it to me. The court froze at the tone. Nivara placed the severed cord in his palm. The moment Merek touched the silver strand, darkness climbed his fingers. His wolf shadow snarled. Arlenna felt the tower's sight hit her like cold water. Not pain, transfer. The old bond searching for the watcher whose right had been cut away. She staggered, one hand catching a thorn branch. Blood welled at her palm. The black eye above widened. Across its surface, silver lines appeared for the first time since it went blind. Not a border map, a warning. One image, the east slope farms under moonlight, and among the red ferns moving between sleeping houses, a white priest lantern swinging where no patrol lantern should be. Nivara's lantern. Arlenna looked from the image to the priestess. Nivara's face had gone perfectly calm. Too calm. Then the tower spoke through the black glass in a voice made of stone, moonlight, and widow grief. The blind hours were opened from inside the wall, and in the tower glass, Nivara Crow's white lantern swung once more between the sleeping farms. Merek sent riders before the court remembered how to breathe. East slope, he ordered. Wake every farm. No doors open to lanterns. No child left sleeping near a window. The border captain struck his fist to his chest and ran. For one breath, the nobles looked relieved that command had returned to the room. They liked orders. Orders felt like walls. Orders made danger sound as if it had already been contained. Arlenna knew better. A blind hour was not stopped by riders alone. If the path had opened near the farms, then distance no longer belonged to ordinary roads. Things could cross through a fold in moonlight, while wolves still believed they were running in time. She pressed her bleeding palm to her cloak. The black eye of the tower remained fixed on her, not pleading, waiting. Nivara Crow lowered her chin, and the white calm returned to her face. Majesty, sending riders based on exile sight is exactly how she ruins discipline. The tower showed a lantern because she named one. Widow, blood on thornwood can stain moonglass. Arlenna turned toward her. Then show yours. Nivara's eyes sharpened. Merek looked at the priestess. Your lantern, my altar lantern, is in the watch chapel. Bring it. Nivra did not move. The silence was small. It was enough. Merek's royal wolf shadow took one step forward, dark paws spreading across the stones. The court felt it before they understood it. Nobles shifted away from the priestess, as if suspicion had a smell. Nivara bowed. I sent it ahead for blessing rites. To the east farms? Merek asked. To mark the safe path for replacement watchers. Arlenna laughed once under her breath. The sound was bitter enough to make Merek look at her. Safe path, she said. A priest lantern does not mark a blind hour. It feeds one if the wick is cut with seeing oil. The old watchmen near the stair crossed themselves. Merek's face tightened. Explain. Arlenna looked up at the tower. The moon eye sees by return. Watcher to tower. Tower to border. Border back to watcher. If a priest lantern carries stolen seeing oil through the outer farms, the tower follows the wrong light. It looks where the lantern tells it to look, and misses what walks behind it, Merek said. His voice had gone low. Arlenna did not soften. That is what I warned you for 3 years. The words landed cleanly between them. Merek deserved them. He accepted them without answer, which was the first useful thing he did. Nivara stepped forward. She invents old law now because the court is frightened enough to listen. No, Arlenna said. I remember old law because widows are the ones left awake after men finish dying for new ones. Merek looked at the broken cord in his hand. Darkness still stained his fingers where he had touched the dulling silver strand. Can you use the tower from there? There, beyond the thornline, exiled. Arlenna looked at him for a long moment. You want me to look through it again? His jaw moved once. Yes. Why did you never look at me? The question did not rise. It did not need to. Merek's wolf shadow lowered its head. The court looked away, not from kindness, but because guilt made poor entertainment when it belonged to a king. Merek did not defend himself. I should have. Too late for should. Yes, that single word changed nothing. But it did not lie. The tower eye pulsed, and the cut in Arlenna's palm burned cold. A silver line of sight slid beneath her skin, traveling from wrist to throat, from throat to eye. She staggered, but did not fall. Images opened, not in the tower chamber, in here. 3 farms on the east slope. A mother tying a window cloth, an old man dragging a flour sack against a door, 2 boys carrying lantern water from the shed, riders still too far away, their wolves running hard through Red Fern but losing ground to a road that was not a road. Then the white lantern appeared at the edge of the first yard. Its flame did not glow, it swallowed glow. Where it swung, moonlight bent inward and vanished. Arlenna's breath caught. The lantern has reached Pike Hollow, a noble whispered. Her old farm. Merek looked sharply at her. Arlenna did not look back. She had given that farm to her husband's brother after Oren died. Families lived there now. People who had never known why Arlenna climbed a tower instead of joining supper tables. Nivara's mouth curved faintly. How convenient that danger chooses her grief. Arlenna turned toward the gate. The thornline hissed as if exile itself disliked being crossed twice in one night. Merek stepped down from the arch. Arlenna. She did not stop. He followed to the edge of the thorns, but did not reach for her. Good. Some lessons had finally begun to enter his hands. You are stripped of watch. Right, he said. I know. If you cross back through the thornline without restoration, the old law may cut you. I know that too. Then wait. She looked over her shoulder. For another court vote? Pain moved through his face. She carried on before it could become another useless apology. I am not returning to serve the court that cast me out. I am going to wake the farms. The thornline opened for her. Not gently. Branches caught her widow's cloak and tore thin black threads from the hem. A silver cut opened along her forearm, but Arlenna kept walking. The tower eye followed her step by step, black glass shining with the sight it had withheld from the pack. Merek turned to the guards. Open the lower gate, Nivara snapped. Majesty, if she re-enters without a restored cord, she is not re-entering for honor, Merek said. She is going to save the farms I failed to hear. The lower gate groaned open. Arlenna crossed the wall's shadow. The moment her foot touched pack soil, the Moon Watchtower screamed. Not allowed. Through every torch, blue flame bent sideways. The stone eye above split with silver veins, and a new vision flooded the glass for all to see. Pike Hollow, the white lantern hanging from the farm gate, and beneath its light, every lock on every sleeping house opening by itself. Nivara whispered one word under her breath. The lantern flame turned black. Then the first door swung inward. Pike Hollow woke without a scream. That was the first mercy. The first door swung inward, but the woman inside had already opened her eyes. Not because she heard the latch move, not because a wolf barked warning from the yard, because Arlenna struck the threshold with her bleeding palm and whispered the old widow watch command through her teeth. Wake before the dark counts you. The woman bolted upright. Arlenna did not wait to see recognition. She shoved the door back with her shoulder, dragged the iron latch into place, and smeared blood across the crack where moonlight should have fallen clean. The black lantern at the gate swung once, slow as a hanging throat. Every lock in Pike Hollow answered it. Click, click, dace, click. Doors opened down the lane. Windows loosened. Barn hooks lifted. The white lantern did not shine. It swallowed the silver from every roof and pulled it into a narrow road between the houses. A road no wolf patrol could smell because it was made from stolen sight, not ground. Arlenna ran. Her widow's cloak tore on fence stakes. Mud dragged at her hem. The cut on her forearm burned with tower sight, silver threading under the skin. Each pulse showed her another door, another sleeping face, another shadow leaning toward warmth. "Wake," she shouted. "Bar the doors from inside. Do not look at the lantern." A man stumbled from a shed with an axe. "Arlenna? Inside. But the tower? Inside, or it will learn your voice." He went pale and obeyed. Behind her, the first thing came through the blind road. It was not shaped like a wolf. That would have been easier. It moved on too many joints beneath a skin of folded dark, low to the ground, its head turning without eyes. Where its feet touched mud, no print remained. Its mouth opened, and Arlenna heard several voices at once. A crying woman, an old friend, a dead patrolman begging to be let in. She did not hear Oren. That frightened her more. The creature paused at the blood mark on the first threshold, and recoiled, not from her blood alone. From the watch bound inside it, at Red Fern border tower, the great black eye showed everything to the court. Merek saw Arlenna running alone through the hollow while his riders were still crossing the Fern Road. He saw doors opening before she reached them. He saw the black lantern swing at the gate, and he saw Nivara watching the glass too calmly. "Call the lantern back," he said. The priestess did not turn. "It is not mine." Merek's wolf shadow bared its teeth. Nivara lifted her chin. "If you send warriors through a blind road, you may lose them before they reach her. Let the widow prove whether her sight can survive what she invited." Merek moved so fast the nearest noble stumbled back. He caught Nivara's wrist. The court gasped. Her sleeve slipped, and beneath the white priest cloth, silver stains marked her skin in thin cord lines. Not burns, transfers. The same dull silver that had faded from Arlenna's seeing strand. Merek's voice went quiet. "What did you take?" Nivara met his eyes. "What?" The border needed from a woman who could no longer bear it cleanly. In the tower glass, Arlenna reached the last house before the black road did. The door had opened halfway. Inside, a family crouched in the dark, frozen by the lantern's pull. Arlenna saw their mouths moving, but no sound reached her. The blind hour had already entered the threshold. If she crossed without watchright, the old law might cut deeper than skin. If she waited, the thing outside would learn their breathing. She stepped through. Pain struck from the tower to her bones. Arlenna fell to one knee inside the doorway, blood spilling from her nose onto the floorboards. The family gasped awake as sound returned. The shadow outside lunged. Arlenna slammed both hands against the doorframe. "I am Arlenna Pike," she said, voice shaking but clear. "Widow of Oren Pike, Knight, Watch of Red Fern, stripped by men but not released by the dark." The moon eye above the tower flared black-silver. The doorframe burned with the same color. The shadow hit it and split apart into smoke. Not dead, denied. Across the hollow, every blood-marked threshold answered. Doors slammed shut. Windows sealed. The blind road shuddered as if something had bitten through its spine. Then the black lantern at the gate turned toward Arlenna. Its flame widened. Inside the flame, she saw a hand trimming the wick with stolen seeing oil. A priestess's hand, Nivara's hand. But another memory moved behind it. Older, darker, half buried beneath 7 winters. Oren Pike kneeling in Red Fern mud. Alive, his patrol cord wrapped around his throat. A white lantern hanging above him. Arlenna stopped breathing. At the tower, Merek saw the same image. His face changed. Not shock, recognition of a crime his border had buried beneath her grief. The lantern flame stretched into a thin black smile. Then, Oren's eyes opened inside the fire, and a voice from the blind road whispered, "She traded him first." The blind road knew how to use a dead man. It wore Oren Pike's open eyes in the lantern flame and waited for Arlenna to break. She nearly did. For 7 winters, she had carried the last memory of him as a body in red fern mud, one hand still reaching toward the tower he had died trying to warn. She had buried him with his patrol knife, his winter cloak, and the half of his watch cord the beasts had not torn away. She had never imagined the dark had kept a piece of him for itself. The lantern flame smiled wider. Across Pike Hollow, doors held under Arlenna's blood marks, but the blind road had not closed. It curled between the houses like a black ribbon, searching for one unguarded threshold, one frightened voice, one person foolish enough to answer the dead. "Do not listen," Arlenna called. "Whatever it says, do not answer." Inside the nearest house, a woman pressed both hands over her mouth. A child began to sob against her skirt. The sound nearly pulled Arlenna toward them, but the lantern flame brightened when the sob reached the road. It fed on being heard. At Red Fern Border Tower, every witness saw the image in the moon glass. Oren's eyes, Arlenna alone in the hollow, the black road touching every door she had not yet sealed. Nivara Crow lifted her voice before Merek could command. "You heard it," she said. "The dark named the trade. Widow Grief opened this path long before tonight." Several nobles recoiled from the glass. Merek did not look away from Arlenna. It did not name her. Nivara's face hardened. "It said she traded him first." "It said she," Merek answered. "The dark likes a room that finishes its sentence for it." For the first time, Arlenna heard him defend a warning before it became proof. It did not warm her, but it steadied something. Nivara turned toward the court. "Majesty, if she carries an old bargain, every farm she touches may become a door. Recall the riders, seal Pike Hollow before the road spreads." Arlenna heard the word seal. So did the families behind the doors. Pike Hollow fell into a silence more frightened than screaming. Seal meant abandonment dressed as strategy. It meant no one left until dawn. If dawn came, it meant the court would rather trap the innocent with danger than admit danger had entered by law, lantern, and priestly hand. Merek's wolf shadow rose behind him. "No farm is sealed while my people breathe inside it," he said. Nivara's eyes sharpened. "Then you risk the wall for one widow's claim." "I risk the wall because I failed it already." That cost him. The court felt it. Arlenna did too, though she refused to soften around it. The black lantern swung again. Oren's face in the flame turned toward her. "Lena," it whispered. Her knees almost gave. No one had called her that since the night he died. The blind road reached for her with his voice, threading through memory. His hand on her shoulder before a winter patrol, his laugh against her hair, the promise he had made beneath the tower stairs that if one of them died first, the other would keep looking. She closed her eyes, not to escape him, to remember him correctly. Oren had never begged at doors. He had never used fear to enter a house. He had died with his teeth bared at the dark, not smiling from inside it. Arlenna opened her eyes. "You are wearing him badly," she said. The lantern flame twitched. Then she walked toward it. At the tower, Merek struck the seeing rail hard enough to crack frost across the stone. "Arlenna, wait." She did not. The lantern hung from the old farm gate, black flames swallowing moonlight around it. The blind road widened with every step she took. Shadows gathered low beyond the fence, too many joints, too many mouths, all waiting for the blood on her palm to fail. Arlenna lifted her hand. The tower sight in her veins answered, cold and silver. "I did not trade Oren," she said. "But someone did." The black flame bent toward her. Nivara's voice rang from the tower arch. "Do not let her speak bargain law. She is not restored." Arlenna smiled without looking back. "No, I am not." Then she pressed her bleeding palm to the lantern glass. Pain struck through her arm so violently that her vision shattered white. The lantern tried to drink her sight. That was its mistake. The Moon Watchtower looked through her. Black glass, above Red Fern Border Tower, blazed with sudden silver. Every witness saw Arlenna's hand against the lantern, saw the stolen seeing oil inside its wick, saw old threads of watchright twisted through the flame like hair, not Arlenna's hair. Oren's patrol cord. A low sound moved through the warriors watching. The lantern flame fought, showing fragments instead of truth. Oren kneeling, Arlenna crying. Nivara's white sleeve, a knife, Red Fern mud. The tower eye open and helpless. Arlenna forced her hand harder against the glass. "Show the hand," she whispered. The lantern cracked. In its broken surface, the memory cleared. 7 winters ago, Arlenna Pike knelt beneath the north ridge, alive but wounded, his patrol cord wrapped around his throat to keep him from calling his wolf. Nivara Crow stood before him with a white lantern in one hand and Arlenna's old warning record in the other. Oren spat blood at her feet. "You will not blind the tower while she lives." Nivara leaned close and cut the silver strand from his patrol cord. "I do not need her dead," she said in the memory. "I only need the court tired of hearing her." The lantern glass burst. Arlenna flew backward into the mud. The blind road shrieked. Across Pike Hollow, every sealed door held. At the tower, no one spoke. Merek turned slowly toward Nivara. The priestess's calm was gone now. In its place stood something colder, necessity without shame. "You killed Arlenna Pike," Merek said. Nivara's eyes did not lower. "I purchased 7 years of peace." The Moon Watchtower groaned above them. Then the broken lantern at Pike Hollow spilled its last black flame into the mud, and fire wrote one sentence across the road. The first blind hour was paid with a watchman's cord. By the time Merek reached Pike Hollow, the mud was still burning. The words across the blind road had faded from fire to silver ash, but every wolf who stepped near them lowered his muzzle and refused to cross, not from fear of flame, from recognition. Old watch law had been broken there. A watchman's cord had been used as payment, and the night had remembered the debt. Arlenna sat against the gatepost, with one hand wrapped in torn black cloth. The broken lantern lay in the mud beside her, its glass cracked into white veins, its dead wick curled around a silver thread that had once belonged to Arlenna Pike. Merek stopped several paces away. For once his arrival did not move the center of the scene. Arlenna did. The families of Pike Hollow had gathered behind barred doors and half-open shutters, watching the widow who had crossed exile law for them. No one called her grief-sick now. No one asked whether shadows were real. They had heard the blind road wearing familiar voices outside their thresholds. Proof had finally arrived with teeth, just as she had always known it would. Merek looked at her hand. "You are bleeding." Arlenna did not look up. "I noticed." His jaw tightened. The words deserved nothing softer. Behind him, riders spread through the hollow, marking every threshold Arlenna had sealed. The black road had withdrawn, but not vanished. Its edges still trembled between the red ferns, waiting for another lantern, another stolen strand, another priestess willing to call betrayal peace. Merek knelt beside the broken lantern. He did not touch it. That small restraint mattered more than another apology. "What did she buy?" he asked. Arlenna's gaze moved to him slowly. "You heard her. 7 years of peace," he said. "No." Arlenna looked toward the dark trees. 7 years of chosen blindness. At the tower, Nivara Crow stood between 2 flame guards, with her hands unbound and her face composed again. Even exposed, she carried herself like a woman who had not lost faith in her own necessity. The moonglass still showed her to Pike Hollow. The tower wanted Arlenna to see. Nivara lifted her chin toward the black eye. "You mistake survival for betrayal, because widows love clean grief. Borders do not survive cleanly." Arlenna pushed herself to her feet. Merek rose at once, but did not reach for her. "You killed Oren," Arlenna said. "I moved a warning cord from one dying watchman to a lantern that saved hundreds." The hollow went silent. Even the wind stopped dragging through the fern beds. Nivara's voice carried through the tower glass. The night beyond Red Fern is not an army that can be defeated. It is hunger with memory. It takes a path if no path is given. I opened blind hours where losses could be managed. Empty roads, old fields, one patrol at a time. Your husband interfered. Arlenna's face went white. Not weak, white like stone under moonlight. You fed them patrols. I fed them distance. You fed them names. Nivara's calm cracked. And what would you have done? Warned every farm every night until no one slept. No one traded. No one believed the tower. Your sight was too sharp for a kingdom that needed to keep living. Merek stared at the moonglass. His mistake stood before him now, in full shape. He had not merely silenced a woman. He had accepted peace because it came without screams close enough to the throne. His wolf shadow spread behind him across the mud. You will be bound, he said. Nivara smiled sadly. No, Majesty. I will be understood too late. She opened her left hand. A silver thread lay across her palm. Not Oren's, not Arlenna's. Merek's royal wolf shadow recoiled. Arlenna saw the thread before he understood it. It was darker than the others. Edged in gold at one end, blackened at the other. Royal sight, wolf sight, the hidden night sense Merek had been losing since the last border war. Nivara had not only dulled the tower, she had been thinning the king. Merek's hand went to his chest. The royal wolf shadow behind him flickered, its great head turning toward the woods as if hearing a command from far away. Nivara closed her fist around the thread. The Moon Watchtower screamed. This time everyone heard it. Stone cried out from Red Fern border tower to Pike Hollow. The black eye split open with silver cracks, and the images inside it multiplied. North Ridge, East Farms, Old Wells, Shepherd Roads, the dry riverbed beneath the thornline. Blind hours opened in 7 places at once, one for every year since Oren died. The nobles at the tower began shouting. Guards seized Nivara, but darkness poured from between her fingers and wrapped their wrists. Not enough to kill. Enough to delay. Nivara looked through the tower glass at Arlenna. You wanted the border to see, she said. Then look. The 7 black roads widened. Shapes moved inside them, low and many-jointed, wearing stolen voices in their mouths. Merek staggered as the royal thread tightened in Nivara's hand. His wolf shadow bent toward the nearest blind road, pulled by its own stolen sight. Arlenna stepped forward, despite the blood soaking her sleeve. The tower eye turned toward her, waiting again. Merek looked at her, and this time the question cost him pride before it left his mouth. Arlenna, he said, voice rough. What do I do? She looked at the 7 roads opening under his reign, then at the king who had finally asked before commanding. Restore what you cut, she said. Merek lifted the broken watch cord. The silver strand hung dead in his hand. At the tower, Nivara smiled, because the cord was no longer whole, and above them, the Moon Watchtower showed the truth none of them had wanted. Arlenna's watch right had not been cut. It had been divided among the blind roads. 7 blind roads, opened under one moon. From Pike Hollow, Arlenna saw them as black seams cut through the borderlands. One near the East Farms, one beside the dry riverbed, one behind the old shepherd stones, one along the North Ridge where Oren died, and 3 more bending toward places no patrol had time to reach. The tower showed them all, not to the court, to her. Every road carried a thread of silver, torn from what had once been hers. Not whole sight, not clean watch right, pieces, thin, wounded lines stretched across the border like nerves pulled from a living body. Arlenna understood why the tower had gone blind. It had not lost its eye. It had lost the pattern that told it where to look. Merek stood beside her in the mud, with the broken cord in his hand, and darkness staining his fingers. The royal wolf shadow behind him strained toward the roads, pulled by the gold-edged thread clutched in Nivara's fist back at the tower. For the first time, the Alpha King looked less like the wall. more like a man learning he had been one of the gates. "Can you call the pieces back?" he asked. Arlenna looked at the dead silver strand hanging from his hand. "Not while it is held as punishment." His jaw tightened. "Then how? You restore it as witness." Behind them, Pike Hollow families waited behind sealed doors. Riders arrived at last, wolves panting hard, moonsteel drawn. They looked at Arlenna first before looking at their king. Merek noticed. So did she. Nivara's voice carried through the tower glass, smooth despite the guards fighting shadow around her wrists. "A touching delay. While you debate ceremony, the roads widen." The nearest blind road answered her. A shape unfolded from it, low and many-jointed, wearing a farmer's voice. "Open," it called softly from beyond a blood-marked door. "It is safe now." Inside, someone sobbed. Arlenna stepped toward the voice. Merek caught himself before reaching for her. "What do you need?" The question was rough, new, still late, but useful. She held out her bleeding hand. The cord. He placed it in her palm. The broken silver did not brighten. Nivara laughed once from the tower. "She has no watch. Right. You severed it before witnesses." The tower obeyed. Arlenna closed her fingers around the strand. "No." The tower mourned. Then she turned toward Pike Hollow, toward the riders, toward the nobles watching through the black glass of Red Fern border tower. "If I speak, will you hear me before proof arrives dead?" No one answered quickly. That was the shape of the wound. Merek faced the tower glass. His voice carried across moonstone and mud. "Hear her." Nivara's smile thinned. "A king cannot lend belief after cutting law." "No," Merek said. "He can admit the cut was wrong." The court went silent. Arlenna looked at him. Merek lifted the half-cord for all to see. "I stripped Arlenna Pike's watch. Right to quiet nobles who hated warning more than danger. I called it border judgment. It was fear wearing law." The silver strand in Arlenna's hand flickered once. "Not enough, but not dead," Merek continued. Each word costing him more because each word named the thing his court had survived not hearing. "Widow, watch is restored under my voice. No warning from a grief-bound watcher will be dismissed because grief made it sharper. No priest will touch the seeing strand without witness. No border peace bought through blind hours will be called peace again." The strand brightened. One silver thread snapped loose from the nearest road and flew across the hollow into Arlenna's palm. Pain struck her. She did not fall. The black road at Pike Hollow shrank by half. The creature wearing the farmer's voice shrieked, then folded backward into the dark seam. A cheer tried to rise from the riders. Arlenna cut it down with one look. 6 remain. Nivara's calm finally broke. She tightened her fist around the gold-edged royal thread. Merek staggered. His wolf shadow bent sharply, muzzle dragged toward the North Ridge Road. The black seam there widened, and a sound came out of it. Not a stolen villager's voice this time, not Oren's. A wolf's cry. Royal. Merek went pale. Arlenna saw the truth at the same moment the tower did. The North Ridge Road was not tied to her widow grief. It was tied to Merek's failing night sight. Nivara had hidden her theft beneath his pride, his silence, his need to appear certain before a court that feared uncertainty more than darkness. "Merek," Arlenna said. He forced his eyes to hers. The royal wolf shadow pulled harder, claws carving mud. If it crossed into that road, the king's night sight would be lost entirely. Then the tower would have no royal anchor, no watcher pattern, no way to hold the remaining roads from opening wider. Nivara's voice turned cold. "Choose, Majesty. Save your wolf sight, or let the widow spend herself road by road while your border dies waiting." Merek looked at the 6 black seams tearing the land. Then, at Arlenna's bleeding hand. "No," he said. He took one step toward the North Ridge Road. Arlenna blocked him. "That is exactly what she wants." She is using my wolf to hold the road open, and if you enter it, she owns what is left. The tower I flared. Across its black glass, silver words appeared for all to see. Royal night sight was cut before the widow's cord. Merek froze. Arlenna felt the second piece of her watch-right pulse in the road ahead, tangled with gold, grief, and something older than either of them. Then the North Ridge seam opened wide enough to show the past inside it. Arlenna Pike stood in the Red Fern mud. Beside him stood Merek Saul, 7 years younger, alive, wounded, and holding a white lantern he did not remember carrying. The past inside the North Ridge Road did not behave like memory. It breathed. Red fern mud steamed beneath a moon too white to be natural. Wind moved without touching grass. Arlenna Pike stood in the hollow of the old patrol path, with blood on his sleeve and his patrol cord half torn at his throat. Across from him, younger Merek Saul held the white lantern in one hand, his face grey with pain, his eyes unfocused. Not cruel, not awake enough to be cruel. That made it worse. Arlenna watched from Pike Hollow with the tower sight burning in her palm. Merek stood beside her, older now, silent as the memory showed him what his own mind had refused to keep. "I do not remember this," he said. Nivara's voice came through the tower glass like a knife through silk. "Wounded kings remember what keeps them alive." Nothing more. The memory shifted. 7 years ago, Merek had been bleeding from a wound under his ribs, one hand pressed to the white lantern's handle. His royal wolf shadow staggered behind him, its left eye dimmed. Nivara stood close, younger but already calm, her priest robes clean, where every warrior around her was mud-stained. "You must hold it, Majesty," she said in the memory. "The tower cannot find the ridge without royal light." Young Merek's mouth moved. "Where is the watcher? Dead or running?" Nivara answered. Arlenna Pike dragged himself upright in the mud. "Liar." The memory sharpened. Arlenna stopped breathing. Arlenna had been alive when Merek arrived. Alive, watching the priestess place the lantern into the king's hand. Young Merek turned toward Arlenna's voice, but his eyes passed over him as if the world had holes in it. Nivara had already wrapped a thin, gold-edged thread around the lantern handle, and the other end of it disappeared beneath Merek's torn sleeve. Royal night sight, cut and looped through the white flame. Arlenna felt Merek understand. His wolf shadow beside her gave a low, wounded sound. Nivara had not needed the young king's consent. She had needed his blood, his sight, and a battlefield where pain could be mistaken for command. Arlenna lunged toward the lantern. "That light is opening the road." Nivara struck him with the end of her staff. He fell to one knee. "You will bring every creature on the ridge if you shout," she said. "I am trying to stop them. You are trying to wake a court that will tear itself apart if it knows the border is already breached." Arlenna spat blood into the mud. "Then let it tear." Arlenna's throat tightened so hard she could not swallow. That was Arlenna. Not the voice the dark had worn. Not the smiling, dead thing in the lantern. Her Arlenna, stubborn and blooded, choosing truth even when truth arrived too late to save him. Young Merek swayed. "Nivara, what is happening?" "Peace," she whispered. Then she pressed her thumb against the royal thread. The white lantern turned black. The blind hour opened. The memory broke into motion. Shadows pouring low through the ridge, patrol wolves turning the wrong way, Arlenna trying to cut the thread with his knife, Nivara catching his wrist, the silver strand of his patrol cord snapping under her blade. The tower glass flared. Merek staggered back in the present, as if the cut had crossed his own ribs. Arlenna turned on him. "You carried the lantern." His face had gone pale. "I did not know." "No," she said. "But afterward, you knew something had been taken from your wolf." That struck, because it was true. His eyes lowered once, not enough to hide. Yes, the admission moved through Pike Hollow, through the tower, through every watching noble. Merek had not known the crime, but he had hidden the wound it left. He had ruled with fading night sight, and let the tower bear the shame for what he could no longer see. Nivara seized that silence. A king cannot confess weakness at the border. I preserved him. I preserved all of you. Arlenna's voice cut across the black roads. You preserved your place beside a blind throne. The Moon Watchtower answered. One silver thread ripped free from the Northridge Road and flew into Arlenna's hand. Pain bent her forward. Merek moved, stopped himself, then held out his arm without touching her. She took it only long enough to stand. The second road shrank. 5 remained. Nivara's calm cracked into fury. She tightened her grip around the royal thread, and Merek's wolf shadow slammed to one knee in the mud. The remaining roads widened, feeding on his stolen sight. Arlenna saw the choice forming. If Merek fought Nivara's hold with royal command, the roads would use his wolf as an anchor. If Arlenna pulled alone, the sight could tear through her and leave the tower blind forever. She looked at him. You have to stop ruling the wound. His breath came rough. Tell me how. Name it. His jaw tightened. Every noble watched. Every farmer listened behind sealed doors. Merek lifted his head toward the tower glass. My royal wolf lost night, sight at the North Ridge 7 years ago. I hid it. I let the court believe the tower failed before I admitted the king did. Nivara snarled. Fool. The gold-edged thread in her fist sparked. Arlenna held out the broken watch cord. Now give the sight back as witness, not as throne. Merek placed his stained fingers over the cord, not claiming it, submitting to it. His wolf shadow pressed its muzzle to the silver strand. The third road collapsed. Then the tower showed them the next horror. Far beyond Pike Hollow, at the oldest blind road near the dry riverbed, a line of pale figures crossed into packland, wearing the faces of dead watchmen. Oren's face was among them, and this time, the thing wearing him carried Nivara's white lantern. At the dry riverbed, the dead walked without leaving footprints. They came through the blind road in a slow, pale line, wearing the faces of watchmen buried across 7 winters, men with patrol scars, women with moon steel badges, wolves whose names had once been howled from the tower roof when their bodies were carried home. And at the front walked Arlenna Pike, not as Arlenna had buried him, as she had last seen him alive. Mud on his knees, blood at his mouth. One hand closed around a white lantern burning black. The sight struck Pike Hollow silent. Behind sealed doors, families pressed close to their shutters. Warriors lowered their spears without meaning to. Even the royal wolf shadow beside Merek gave a low, uncertain growl, because grief had a scent, and the blind road had learned to wear it well. Arlenna stood very still. Merek looked at her. Do not answer him. I know. But knowing did not make the face less cruel. The thing wearing Oren lifted the lantern. Lena! The word crossed the fields and found every weak place in her. Merek's hand moved, then stopped before touching her arm. Good. She could not survive this if anyone mistook restraint for abandonment or protection for ownership. The next choice had to be hers. The pale watchman advanced. Where they passed, the blind road widened. Not by force, by recognition. Every warrior who remembered one of those faces gave the road a little more shape. Every gasp, every whispered name, every step backward became permission. Arlenna understood. They are not invading through darkness, she said. They are entering through morning. Nivara's voice came through the tower glass, tight with fury. Then, perhaps grief. Sight finally reveals what it truly serves. Merek turned toward the tower image. Enough. No, Nivara said. Let the widow look. Let the court see whether she saves the border or runs to the dead man she has followed for 7 years. Arlenna's fingers tightened around the restored pieces of silver cord in her palm. 3 roads had collapsed. 4 remained. The dry riverbed was largest now because it carried faces, and faces opened doors that claws could not. She stepped toward it. Merek moved beside her. "No," she said. He stopped. The hurt in his eyes was not anger. That made it harder. "I can stand with you," he said. "You can stand where the pack sees you listen." The words cut him. They were meant to. He turned back toward the riders and lifted his voice. "No one speaks the dead names. No one lowers a weapon for a familiar face. No door opens. No grief answers without witness." The order settled over Pike Hollow like a new wall. A better one. Not silence. Discipline. Arlenna crossed the mud toward the blind road. The false Oren smiled with her husband's mouth. "You waited so long." She stopped just beyond the Red Fern line. "For him. Not for you." The lantern flame shivered. The dead watchmen behind him opened their mouths. All at once, the voices came. Sisters, mates, sons, mothers, pack brothers. The road poured 7 years of buried loss into the hollow, each voice calling from a throat the living remembered. Several warriors fell to their knees. A woman behind a door sobbed a name before biting it back. The road widened another handspan. Arlenna raised the watch cord. Silver light moved through the broken strands, dim but gathering. "I call Widow Watch," she said. Nivara laughed sharply. "You have no complete cord." "No," Arlenna answered. "Because you spent 7 years hiding it in graves." The Moon Watchtower groaned. Its black eye turned toward the dry riverbed. The false Oren lifted the lantern higher. Arlenna felt the old wound open in her chest. Not bleeding, but seeing. She had thought grief was something she carried alone, but the tower had been built on widows, mates, sisters, sons, all those left awake after death because someone had to remember where the dark entered. Grief was not blindness. Unwitnessed grief was. She pressed the broken cord against her bleeding palm. "Name yourselves without the dead," she commanded. The pale line flickered. The faces blurred. Oren's mouth stretched too wide. Behind the borrowed features, the true shapes showed for one heartbeat. Long, jointed night things with hollow throats, wearing patrol cords as collars, each collar threaded with stolen silver. Merek saw. So did every witness through the tower glass. "Cut the collars," Arlenna said. The warriors hesitated, not because they feared the monsters, because the collars looked like relics. Merek stepped forward. "Those cords were stolen from the dead. Returning them is not desecration. Leaving them there is." He drew his blade. Not against the dragon of old law, not against Arlenna, against the lie. The royal wolf shadow lunged first. It struck the nearest pale watchman, not tearing flesh, but biting through the silver collar around its throat. The stolen cord snapped loose and flew toward Arlenna's hand. Pain flashed through her palm. The fourth road collapsed. Then the riders understood. Moon's steel struck collar after collar. Each severed strand flew back to the Widow Watch cord. Each returning piece hurt. But Arlenna held them, breathing through the force of 7 years of stolen warning coming home. The false Oren remained. His collar was not silver. It was gold-edged black, royal night sight. Merek stopped when he saw it. Nivara's voice came low through the tower. "That one requires a king." Arlenna looked at Merek. So did the whole pack. He could cut it and admit, before every witness, that his missing sight had been used to hold her husband's death open. Or he could hesitate and let the road keep wearing Oren. Merek walked to Arlenna's side. This time, she did not send him back. He faced the thing wearing Oren and lowered his blade. "I gave my silence to the wrong hands," he said. "I take it back as witness." His wolf shadow opened its jaws over the gold-black collar. Nivara screamed. The collar snapped. The false Oren shattered into smoke. For one breath, only the real memory remained. Oren Pike, standing in Red Fern moonlight, tired, wounded, and smiling at Arlenna as if he had finally been released from a door he never chose. Then he was gone. The dry riverbed road folded shut. 3 roads remained. At Red Fern border tower, the royal thread flew from Nivara's fist. Merek staggered as it struck his chest. His wolf shadow flared gold-eyed for the first time that night. The Moon Watchtower blazed silver. Then Nivara opened both hands. Every stolen strand she had left burned black at once. "If the tower wants truth," she said, "let it choke on all of it." The watch chapel floor cracked beneath her feet, and from under the altar rose a nest of severed cords, each one tied to a blind road still open. The tower rang like a bell struck underground. Every severed cord beneath the watch chapel altar lifted at once, black wool and dulled silver, twisting upward like roots torn from a grave. Some were short as bracelets, some long enough to bind a throat. Each one carried a name, a warning, a night no one had been allowed to hear. The 3 remaining blind roads widened. At the dry riverbed, the old shepherd's stone split under moonlight. At the north ridge, red ferns bent flat as unseen feet passed through them. At the far east hollow, a sleeping patrol fire went blue and began to burn backward into ash. Arlenna felt every road pull at the cord in her hand. 7 years of stolen warning wanted to return through one body. Hers. Merek saw her stagger. This time, he did not ask her to hold it alone. He turned toward the tower glass, toward the nobles, guards, watchmen, and frightened houses seeing everything through the moon eye. Every cord beneath that altar is evidence. No hand burns them. No priest blesses them silent. Bring them into the open. Nivara stood above the cracked chapel floor, her white robe darkened by shadow rising from below. Open them then. Let every widow hear the night that took what they loved. Let every son see where his father screamed. Your border will drown in grief before dawn. Arlenna lifted her head. No, she said. The Moon Watchtower carried her voice through every road. Grief drowns when it is buried. When it is witnessed, it learns where to stand. The silver in her broken cord flared. One by one, the stolen cords under the altar turned toward her, not flying yet, not forcing themselves into her hands. Waiting. That mattered. The tower had learned from her, too. Arlenna looked at Merek. They cannot return to me alone. They belonged to watchers, families, patrols, widows. The pack must take back what it let her bury. Merek understood. He faced the court. Open the watch chapel. Nivara laughed. You still think command is enough? No, he said. That is why I am not commanding only warriors. He looked beyond the nobles to the old watchmen, the servants who trimmed tower candles, the farmers watching through the glass, the widows who had stood silent through years of shortened records and unfinished funerals. Any person who lost a warning to this altar may come forward as witness. For a moment, no one moved. Then, an old woman with a bent spine stepped from the back of the court. She had once washed patrol cloaks. Her hands trembled, but her voice did not. My son's cord vanished after North Ridge. A young guard followed. My sister's warning bell was marked false. Another. Then another. Names entered the tower like returning wolves. Each name loosened a cord from the altar nest. Each cord rose into the moonlight and brightened. Nivara's face changed when she realized the thing she feared was not Arlenna's power. It was everyone remembering together. The blind roads began to shrink, not closed yet, but weakening. Arlenna pressed her palm to the restored cord. Pike. Oren's thread slid into place last, silver and black, no longer around a dead man's throat, no longer in a lantern's wick. It wrapped gently around Arlenna's wrist. Pain moved through her, then peace. Not forgetting. Never that. A clean place for grief to stand. The Moon Watchtower opened fully. Silver sight poured from the eye of Red Fern border tower across the borderlands. It showed every remaining road, every stolen cord, every night creature crouching at the edges where Nivara's lies had fed them. The shapes screamed when moonlight found their real bodies. Merek drew his blade, but did not rush ahead of the sight. He waited for Arlenna. She pointed to the north ridge. There. Cut the road at the fern root, not the shadow. Merek gave the order, exactly as she spoke it. Warriors moved, not blindly. Following the widow watch, Moon's steel struck where Arlenna named. Old watchmen rang warning bells. Farmers barred doors before voices reached them. The royal wolf shadow ran beside the tower's silver light, no longer pulled by Nivara's stolen thread, but answering Merek's restored sight. The first road collapsed, then the second. The last remained beneath the watch chapel itself. Nivara stood over it, white lantern in hand, flame black and starving. "You will need me," she said. "One day the night will ask for a path again, and your honest grief will not stop hunger." Arlenna walked through the tower gate. This time the thornline did not cut her. Merek moved beside her, but half a step back, where a king could be seen listening. Arlenna entered the chapel and faced Nivara across the cracked altar. "The night may hunger," she said, "but we will not feed it our own and call that peace." Nivara raised the lantern. Merek's wolf shadow leapt, note at Nivara's throat. At the lantern, Arlenna threw Oren's restored cord around the flame at the same instant. Silver tightened. Black fire shrieked. The white glass cracked from within, showing every bargain Nivara had made. Patrols diverted, warnings dulled, cords buried, nobles soothed. Farms spared only because other roads had been offered. The court saw all of it. So did the pack. The lantern shattered. The last blind road closed beneath the altar, with a sound like a grave finally covered. Nivara fell to her knees. The stolen silver drained from her hands, leaving them grey and bare. Merek looked at the guards. "Watch. Priest Nivara Crow is stripped of altar. Right, tower, right, and border voice. She will stand judgment under widow. Watch law, with every buried cord as witness." Nivara looked up at Arlenna, hatred thin as frost. "He will use you until the next fear comes." Arlenna did not look away. "Then he will find I am harder to use than to hear." Merek bowed his head once. "Before the court, before her. She is right," he said, "and I will spend my reign proving I learned the difference." At dawn, the Moon Watchtower did not return to its old brightness. It became clearer. Its great eye shone silver black, grief and sight woven together, no longer pretending protection was clean. The restored cords hung openly along the tower wall, each name carved beneath its thread. Arlenna Pike's cord hung first among the returned, not because he was more loved than the others, but because his stolen warning had opened the truth. Merek stood at the base of the tower with Arlenna's watchright cord in both hands. He did not tie it onto her wrist. He offered it. "Arlenna Pike," he said. "Widow, watch of Red Fern, will you take back what I cut from you?" She looked at the cord, then at him. "You cannot give back what was never yours to take." The words struck him cleanly. "Yes," he said. "Then, will you let the pack restore what it failed to defend?" That answer mattered. Arlenna took the cord and tied it around her own wrist. The tower eye opened above her, not only toward exile now, not only toward the wall, toward every border road the pack had once chosen not to see. Merek stood beside her, close enough for warmth, far enough for respect. "May I stand watch with you?" Arlenna looked out over the red ferns where the last blind mist burned away under dawn. "You may stand," she said, "but when the dark moves, you listen first." Merek lowered his head. "I will." The tower's silver light crossed them both. No court cheered. It would have been too small a sound for what had been repaired. Instead, every watch bell along Red Fern border rang once, not in alarm, but in recognition. Arlenna Pike climbed the tower stairs before the sun rose. This time the pack looked with her.